Welcome to another deep dive. We're tackling something really interesting today, spurred by a request to get to the heart of achieving bodybuilding goals. Specifically, we're diving into Skip La Cour's Thinking Big.
Yeah, right off the bat, in Thinking Big, La Cour highlights this central challenge for natural bodybuilders.
Yeah.
It's not just about size, it's about reaching an exceptional level of development without relying on performance-enhancing drugs. That's the real battle.
It's true. La Cour takes us on a journey from mindset, which is super important, to setting the right goals, then, diving into training strategies. He even touches on like building a career in the bodybuilding world. It's a pretty comprehensive roadmap.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, our mission is to pull out those core principles that are like instantly applicable. We want to see how they connect not only to, your fitness goals, but also to your personal life and even your career. Think of it like a blueprint for success across the board.
Okay, so let's jump into something La Cour emphasizes from the very beginning: the power of your beliefs and mindset. He really drives home the idea that what you believe and the choices you make based on those beliefs shape your destiny, especially when it comes to physique development.
And he uses his own experience to illustrate this.
Yeah.
He talks about being skeptical about creatine monohydrate when it first came out. But despite that, he decided to give it a try before a competition. And the results were huge, literally. He won, was 6 pounds heavier and more defined than ever before. It just goes to show you got to be open to new possibilities, even if you're unsure at first.
That's such a great point. And then he contrasts that with other natural bodybuilders who were quick to dismiss new supplements just out of skepticism. And La Cour argues that these fixed beliefs can actually hold you back from real progress. Makes you think, how often do we limit ourselves without even realizing it, right?
Totally. And this goes beyond bodybuilding. It's relevant to, well, pretty much anything. If you're not open to new trends, new technology, new ways of thinking in your career, you risk becoming, well, obsolete. Like those encyclopedias that transition from print to CD-ROM. You adapt or you get left behind.
Exactly. And he takes this further by emphasizing the need to be outstanding, to excel in whatever you do. It's not enough to just coast, whether it's building a better physique, growing your business, or aiming for that promotion. He brings up the AT&T downsizing, where that's not my job attitude left a lot of people, well, unprepared when things changed. It highlights the importance of being adaptable and proactive.
And this is where the whole drug stigma in bodybuilding comes in. La Cour is very clear about striving for an outstanding physique naturally. It's a big part of his whole philosophy.
Absolutely. He even says that thinking big is about challenging your assumptions about what's possible naturally and pushing beyond those limits to a level of development you might think is out of reach.
Yeah, and he gives some concrete examples of those empowering beliefs that are crucial for natural physique development, like unwavering commitment to your goals, appreciating your individual progress without, comparing yourself to others all the time, and always striving for that continuous drug-free improvement. It's about building that strong mental foundation.
He even has that pretty strong statement, right? Don't you dare accuse me of using drugs. This physique is the result of hard work. It shows how dedicated he is and also kind of the frustration natural athletes sometimes feel.
And he talks about pushing past perceived limitations. He uses the analogy of a rocket needing immense thrust to overcome Earth's gravity. At first, progress can feel, well, impossible. But once you break through that initial resistance, the journey becomes a lot easier.
It's like that initial push into a whole new realm of possibility, and that feeling of resistance, it's not just in the gym. He compares it to how ambitious people in the workplace might face pushback from colleagues who are less driven. It's like that same gravitational pull, but from limiting beliefs or maybe even resistance to change from others.
And bring it back to bodybuilding. There's that negative stereotype about drug use that kind of hangs over the sport, affecting both those who, choose to use and those who are dedicated to natural methods. It creates this atmosphere of suspicion that can be pretty discouraging.
Yeah. He outlines 3 common reactions to this stigma: getting angry, ignoring it, or using it as motivation. And he's clearly a fan of that third approach, right?
Definitely. It's about taking that negative energy and turning it into fuel. And what's really smart is how he encourages a shift in perspective. Instead of seeing challenges or skepticism as personal attacks, he says to view them as opportunities to grow and to learn how to succeed despite adversity. It's a much more empowering way to look at things.
Remember Bill Phillips in that muscle media contest? He talks about how that was a turning point for a lot of natural lifters. It showcased what was possible drug-free, demonstrating the potential of consistency and intensity over time.
Totally. And there's that potential disconnect he points out. You have the hardcore bodybuilding fans who are often drawn to, the most extreme physiques. And then you have the majority of people at the gym who just want to be healthy, build a good physique, and are committed to staying natural. Their goals and motivations are, well, pretty different.
Which leads into his warning against just copying professional bodybuilders' routines. He emphasizes that genetics play a huge role at that level, and what works for someone with, incredible genetics and maybe uh, some chemical assistance might not work for the average person.
Right. It's about understanding your own body and what works for you.
Yeah.
And he stresses that most natural bodybuilders are in it for the lifestyle. They prioritize health and building the best physique they can naturally, even if it means not reaching the professional stage. It's a different mindset.
He uses the hero's journey analogy to illustrate this, right? You have the initial self-doubt, the inner struggles, and then the external skepticism, and maybe even criticism. And he says, surprisingly, sometimes the dedication to training and eating right is the easy part compared to overcoming those mental and social hurdles.
That's so true. And for you listening, he asks you to consider your own goals. Maybe it's a healthier lifestyle, a more muscular physique, or even, trying natural competition. He contrasts that with those elite athletes we see in the media. It's a reminder that your journey and aspirations are, well, unique and valid.
So we've talked a lot about beliefs. Now let's move into another key area. Goal setting. La Cour starts off by saying that the limitations we often perceive, those boundaries, are often self-imposed.
Yeah. He quotes Bob Mulwad, who said, "When we set exciting, worthwhile goals for ourselves, they work in two ways. We work on them, and they work on us." It's like this dynamic relationship where our efforts and having clear objectives kind of feed each other.
He uses some great examples, right? Like Bill Clinton deciding he wanted to be president at just 4 years old. Or Arnold Schwarzenegger's unwavering ambition to be a movie star. These were huge goals set super early. It really shows the power of long-term vision.
Yeah. And he asks you, the listener, a really interesting question. How different would your physique or your life be if you'd set those big goals earlier? Makes you think about the impact of having that kind of long-term clarity.
He even suggests setting a goal to, emulate successful natural bodybuilders like Chris Faldo. It's about having a specific role model, a target, which can focus your mindset and make you more receptive to learning from their methods.
It's true. When you have a clear destination in mind, you're naturally drawn to information and strategies that can help you get there. It's like your brain becomes primed to find the resources you need.
And he reassures us it's never too late to start setting goals. Time keeps moving, whether we're working towards something or not, so why not, make that time count, right?
And he addresses something that holds a lot of people back from goal setting. It's, not knowing how to do it effectively. So he gives us 10 very practical strategies.
Let's walk through them. First, you need to develop a clear vision. This goes back to that mental picture, knowing exactly what you want to achieve.
Second, you have to know what you ultimately want to accomplish. He talks about Stephen Covey's principle, begin with the end in mind, knowing where you're going so you can make the right decisions along the way.
Third, and this is huge, know why you want to accomplish your goals. He says that having a strong why accounts for 80% of success. He even suggests writing down all those reasons to solidify your commitment.
The fourth one might be surprising for some people. Don't worry too much about how, at least not right away. He explains that sometimes setting those big goals comes before having a detailed plan. And once you have that clear goal, your mind will start working on finding the ways to get there. With Clinton and Schwarzenegger, their early vision kind of paved the way.
Okay, fifth, write down your goals. He emphasizes that the act of writing makes them more concrete, more real, and it activates your subconscious mind to start looking for those opportunities to make them happen.
Sixth, and this is for keeping that momentum going, review your goals often. He mentions reviewing his goals during cardio, just keeping those goals top of mind, which helps with motivation and staying on track.
The seventh one is about being open. Develop an attitude that you can learn something from anyone at any time. It's about humility, realizing that valuable insights can come from unexpected places.
Eighth, and this is about being prepared. Prepare for obstacles and create solutions in advance. By anticipating challenges and having plans in place, you're less likely to get derailed when they inevitably come up.
Ninth, tell others about your goals and strategies. This is for that extra accountability and support, sharing those aspirations with people you trust.
And 10th, finding that balance. Be flexible, but stick with your plans long enough to evaluate them properly. Be adaptable, but give things time to work, like uh, trying different chest exercises to see what's most effective. It's a good analogy for testing and finding what works for you.
And he adds a bonus tip that I think is so important. Enjoy the ride. He talks about how the satisfaction of reaching a goal can be fleeting, so it's crucial to appreciate the process, the journey itself. He even shares that he regrets not always doing this, and I think that's a good reminder for all of us.
It really is. It highlights that the journey, the process of growth, that's where the real learning and the most meaningful experiences often happen, even more so than the end result itself.
Let's move into another crucial area: intensifying desire and making each workout count. La Cour argues that most people already have like 80% of the knowledge they need to achieve their fitness goals. The missing piece is often the why and the intensity of their desire.
He uses this example of a guy named Steve, who had lots of information about training and nutrition, but lacked a clear understanding of his own personal motivations. He didn't just want to look better. There was a deeper reason behind it.
Exactly. It's about those deeper feelings, like wanting to feel more confident, secure, or maybe wanting to be a positive influence. It's not just about the physical results.
Which leads into the idea of a hierarchy of motivating factors. He uncovers, like, why Steve wanted to get in shape. He wanted to look and feel better, sure, but that was connected to wanting to be a better role model for his family, which would lead to more confidence and stronger relationships. By digging deeper and finding those core motivations, the desire becomes more powerful, more sustainable.
And when it comes to the workouts themselves, he's very clear that great workouts don't just happen. They're the result of planning and setting high standards for yourself before you even get to the gym.
Yeah, he stresses the cumulative effect of consistently good workouts over time. It's not about one killer session, but the steady accumulation of many well-executed workouts that lead to real, lasting change.
And everyone, regardless of their level, can improve their workout efficiency and productivity. It's a constant process of refinement, not just for beginners.
He also clarifies that a great workout is relative to your goals and where you are in your journey. What constitutes progress for someone just starting out will be different for someone more experienced.
And he's all about planning for success. He gives a whole list of things to consider: being mentally prepared, showing up on time, a good warm-up, staying focused, hydrating properly, really dialing in on the target muscle, stretching, visualization, maybe having a training partner, using proper technique, choosing the right weights and reps, trying new exercises strategically, and always aiming to learn something new. It's like a checklist for maximizing your gym time.
He also recommends reviewing your workout right after you're done. This helps reinforce what worked well, identify areas for improvement, and solidify those lessons. It's like a feedback loop for constant improvement.
And he connects this to life outside the gym. He's saying apply those same principles of intention and high standards to anything you want to achieve. It's not just about building muscle. It's about building a successful approach to everything you do.
Like he talks about his friend Glenn McIntosh, who constantly asks himself why, as a reminder of his deeper motivations. And this ties into ideas from Stephen Covey. Begin with the end in mind. And Tony Robbins, know your outcome.
Yeah.
It's all about that clarity of intention.
He even suggests using this for conversations, planning out your objectives before you start talking, being strategic with your words.
Right. And the bottom line is just showing up at the gym without that intention, without those high standards. Well, that's not enough. You got to be mentally engaged and have a clear purpose for every single session.
Okay, let's talk about something I found super valuable: role modeling. La Cour presents this as an extremely effective way to achieve success in bodybuilding, but really in anything. It's about learning from those who have already done what you want to do.
He suggests starting by studying the methods of successful natural bodybuilders. Instead of trying to figure everything out on your own, why reinvent the wheel when you can learn from proven strategies?
And he warns against some pitfalls we often fall into when looking at successful people. We might compare ourselves negatively and feel inadequate, or dismiss their accomplishments by saying, oh, it's all genetics, or they must be using something.
He emphasizes the need to truly believe that it is possible to build an outstanding physique naturally. If you doubt it, you're less likely to, seriously study and learn from those who have done it.
He says success leaves clues. He encourages us to study the top natural guys, their thinking, their training, nutrition, even their supplementation approaches.
And this goes way beyond the gym, doesn't it? He gives an example of how he modeled successful writers to improve his own writing, even though he didn't have a background in journalism. It shows that this concept applies to anything.
But he makes it clear that role modeling isn't passive. It takes effort. He talks about rewriting his articles multiple times, actively applying what he was learning. It's about taking action.
He also points out that modeling is only useful if you see your role models as credible. That's why he's so adamant about being open-minded about the achievements of natural bodybuilders.
He even shares how he used to assume anyone bigger than him must be using drugs, but then realized he was missing out on valuable learning opportunities. It's about letting go of those assumptions and embracing a growth mindset.
And ultimately, it's about helping you, the listener, develop that successful mindset by effectively role modeling those top natural guys. It's about internalizing those patterns of success.
Okay, let's talk about leveraging your successes outside the gym to boost your bodybuilding goals. La Cour has this idea of using those external wins as a kind of breakthrough by understanding and replicating those mental strategies you've used to succeed in other areas.
He suggests brainstorming all the reasons why you want to achieve those bodybuilding goals, both obvious and subtle, short-term and long-term, physical and emotional. Really get to the heart of your motivation.
He gives examples of people who are successful in, like, law school, auto repair, finance, but struggle with their physique because of limiting beliefs they have in the gym. It shows how our mindset can vary so much depending on the context.
And he asks you to think about your own areas of success. How did you achieve that? What challenges did you overcome? And how is your mental approach in those successful situations different from times you've struggled?
The key is recognizing those qualities and strengths you already have and applying them to your training, nutrition, your whole approach to bodybuilding. It's about transferring that winning formula, so to speak.
He emphasizes that your success in bodybuilding comes down to your own expectations and your commitment to personal development. It's about setting that bar high for yourself.
And he gets really direct, asking about your training discipline, your dedication to eating right. Are you holding yourself to the highest standards?
He makes a point that just feeling like you're working hard isn't enough if you're not seeing the results you want. There's always a higher level to strive for, a greater level of precision. It's about outcomes, not just effort.
And it can be hard to honestly evaluate our own effort. It's easy to think we're giving it our all, but our perception can be a bit skewed.
He talks about how comparing ourselves to others or making assumptions about them can really distort our self-assessment. We might use those comparisons as an excuse not to push ourselves harder.
And to avoid that discomfort of maybe not measuring up, we often lower our standards, make excuses like not having enough time for nutrition or rest.
But then he throws in this thought experiment. What if $1 million were on the line? Would you suddenly find the time and overcome those limitations? It shows that those barriers are often self-imposed.
He also talks about how complacency can lower our standards, even when we have good intentions. He tells this story about how he used to expect bad service at busy restaurants just because they were busy.
And then he realized he was doing the same thing with his post-leg workout runs, expecting to perform poorly because he was tired. But when he challenged that expectation, he was surprised by how well he did. It just shows the power of our mindset.
He's adamant that the drive to raise our standards has to come from within, not from external pressure.
He warns about lowering our standards to avoid frustration, because that can lead to feeling overwhelmed and making excuses, which ultimately leads to underachieving. It's a downward spiral.
And he cautions against arrogance based on years of training. No matter how long you've been at it, there's always room for improvement.
He quotes Bill Bradley, who believes someone was always working harder than him, and use that as motivation to push further. It's a good reminder to stay humble and hungry.
He encourages us to build on our successes, but also be open to doing things differently to achieve those truly outstanding results.
He emphasizes raising standards, pushing ourselves harder, without making excuses.
And he gives examples of the high standards set by guys like Bill Davy and Chris Faldo in areas like nutrition, training intensity, recovery, mindset. It shows what it takes to reach that top level naturally.
And to wrap up this point, he reiterates the need to hold ourselves to a higher standard if we want to make significant progress in natural bodybuilding. It's about demanding more from ourselves.
So, on to another crucial element for achieving any goal, especially in something as demanding as bodybuilding: persistence. La Cour acknowledges that building a great physique naturally takes a lot of work. There will be setbacks, there will be disappointments.
And he highlights that relentless persistence, the refusal to give up, is a common trait among successful people across all fields. They simply keep going when others quit.
He quotes his economics teacher, Hank Meyer, who said, If it were easy, you wouldn't enjoy it. It's a reminder that overcoming challenges is part of what makes achievement so satisfying.
He uses the example of the 4-minute mile, which for so long was considered impossible.
Yeah.
Then Roger Bannister broke through that barrier, and soon after, many of the runners followed suit. It shows how breaking a mental barrier can unlock potential we didn't even know we had.
And he brings up the saying, you can only achieve what your mind can conceive. Bannister's achievement shifted the collective belief about what was humanly possible.
He recommends asking empowering questions when you see someone with a great physique, like, what are they doing differently that I can learn from? It shifts your focus from envy to learning and action.
He has this anecdote about noticing red BMW convertibles. Once you become aware of them, you start seeing them everywhere. He uses this to illustrate how the questions we ask ourselves shape our reality. By asking positive, solution-focused questions related to bodybuilding, our minds will start working on finding those answers and solutions.
And this practice of asking empowering questions applies to everything, not just bodybuilding. It's about training your mind to be a problem solver, a solution finder.
He also addresses the tendency to explain away other people's success by attributing it to genetics or drug use, the whole sour grapes mentality.
And he explains how that kind of thinking sets limits on our own potential. If we convince ourselves that something is impossible because of factors beyond our control, we're less likely to put in the effort and try new strategies.
He stresses focusing on your personal best, not comparing yourself to genetic outliers.
He advocates for approaching every workout, every new strategy, with confidence and belief that it can lead to growth. It's about adopting that optimistic, growth-oriented mindset.
He encourages getting rid of negative gossip, especially around speculating about drug use in others. Instead, treat those with more developed physiques with respect and focus on what you can learn from them.
He even shares how he used to assume everyone bigger than him was using drugs, but then realized he was holding himself back by making those assumptions. By changing his mindset and being open to learning, his own progress took a leap forward. It's like he removed a mental parking brake.
He cautions against saying something's impossible because you never know your true potential until you try.
He talks about how much can be achieved naturally and emphasizes that there's always room for improvement. Don't set limits on yourself before you've even started.
He wraps up by saying that building a great physique requires focus, hard work, and unwavering belief.
And breakthroughs often come from trying different things, experimenting, but always with that commitment and persistence. Don't let setbacks discourage you. They're part of the process.
Okay, shifting gears a bit to something La Cour sees as essential for long-term success and happiness: gratitude. He points out how we often focus on what we lack, maybe those small calves, and overlook our strength, like a well-developed chest.
And he argues that this negative focus can hold us back. When we're constantly dwelling on what we don't have, it's hard to stay motivated, appreciate our progress, and enjoy the journey.
He asks us to think back to times when everything was going great, in the gym and in life. And how much did we truly appreciate those moments when we were in them?
He says that gratitude is often something we feel looking back. But the real power is in experiencing it in the present moment, savoring those good things as they're happening.
He talks about how we quickly adapt to positive changes, and what was once great becomes just normal, or even just acceptable. That's why it's so important to actively cultivate gratitude.
He connects this to long-term commitment in bodybuilding. He believes that perseverance comes from appreciating the process and the progress, not just from talent or knowledge.
He explains how bodybuilding can become more enjoyable over time as our bodies adapt, but so many people quit because they focus on the negative or want results too quickly.
He differentiates between productive dissatisfaction, which drives us to improve, and destructive dissatisfaction, which leads to giving up. Knowing the difference is crucial.
He says blaming other people's success on drugs might make us feel better temporarily, but it's ultimately self-limiting.
He clarifies that gratitude doesn't mean settling. It's about appreciating the journey while striving for more.
He tells a story about a national champion who, even after winning, saw it as just a step towards his ultimate goal of turning pro. It's that more attitude, but with a sense of gratitude along the way.
He talks about how he looks in the mirror and sees room for improvement, not a finished product. He's even a bit concerned about the potential for complacency if he gets too much recognition. It's about staying hungry and grounded.
He stresses the importance of being grateful for the ability to train and improve, especially when facing setbacks like injuries. Even being able to move and challenge our bodies is a gift.
He shares a story about a woman named Linda, who trains consistently despite having multiple sclerosis. It puts into perspective the excuses we often make.
He encourages us to focus on what's going well and be grateful for the opportunity to train.
He suggests savoring that post-workout feeling, making it a motivator.
And when you feel frustrated, appreciate the challenge and anticipate that feeling of satisfaction when you overcome it. It's about reframing those negative emotions.
He ends by saying, make gratitude a constant companion in your bodybuilding journey. Find joy and appreciation in the process, not just the destination.
Now let's explore a bigger why behind bodybuilding, the element of contribution. La Cour talks about two levels of achievement: success, which is reaching your personal goals, and significance, which is using that success to benefit others.
He references Zig Ziglar and Dennis Waitley, who emphasize that true fulfillment often comes from making a positive difference in the world.
He believes bodybuilding provides a platform for personal growth. You develop discipline, resilience, all those qualities. And when you're at your best, you naturally have more to offer others.
He talks about sharing the positive feelings, knowledge, and benefits of bodybuilding with others, being a positive influence.
He uses Arnold Schwarzenegger as an example, who went beyond his own achievements to elevate the sport through events like the Arnold Classic and supported organizations like the Special Olympics and the President's Council on Physical Fitness.
He even mentions Arnold's political aspirations as another way to make a difference. It's about using your platform for a greater good.
He brings up Stephen Covey's idea of a scarcity mentality, the belief that there's limited recognition to go around versus an abundance mentality, which recognizes that there's plenty for everyone who earns it.
He encourages us to share our knowledge, mentor others, and help the sport grow. He even quotes Joseph Joubert, "To teach is to learn twice."
He shares a story about how he was happy, not jealous, when someone he mentored achieved success. It shows the personal reward of contributing to others' growth.
He contrasts the impact of someone who's successful based on wealth and possessions with someone who genuinely makes a difference in others' lives, suggesting mentoring is a tangible way to do that.
He ends by emphasizing that being a bodybuilder should be about more than just personal achievement. It's also about contribution and positive influence. So our final deep dive into thinking big is about turning your passion into a career, marketing your muscle. He starts by acknowledging that bodybuilding is super competitive, and for most people, there isn't a ton of money in it.
He cautions against relying solely on contest wins for sponsorships. Even major amateur titles don't guarantee endorsements. It's a tough landscape.
And he makes this interesting point about how being too outstanding, like having a supermassive physique, can actually hurt your marketability with some supplement companies. They often target a younger, less developed audience, and a too huge physique might not resonate with them. He contrasts this with guys like Danny Hester, who have a more classic look and are more relatable to the average person.
It highlights the strategy of companies like EAS and Muscle Media, who used athletes with more attainable physiques in their marketing, making their products seem more accessible.
He tells a story about an NTC national champion who is rejected when trying to get endorsements, showing that companies aren't always eager to sponsor even top amateurs.
This leads to the idea of marketing yourself, finding your unique niche or angle. What makes you stand out beyond just a good physique?
He encourages you to think from a company's perspective. They're looking for character traits like integrity, work ethic, reliability, not just a good body.
And he's clear that just having a good physique and asking for free stuff doesn't work. You need to show them the value you can bring.
He illustrates this with a hypothetical example involving Sean Ray. Companies need to see a return on their investment. It has to make financial sense for them.
He emphasizes building a marketing plan early on if you're serious about a bodybuilding career. Don't wait until you've already made it.
He tells a story about a newly turned pro who made a bad impression on a clothing company owner by being rude and entitled. It shows how important professionalism and respect are.
He's seen similar approaches from bodybuilders with media guys like Lou Zwick and Ron Harris. Just being huge isn't enough to get attention or opportunities.
He even points out that pro bodybuilders are replaceable. The landscape of the sport changes a lot over time.
And some companies just aren't interested in bodybuilding endorsements. It's about targeting the right companies.
He highlights the importance of getting published in magazines for exposure, and that means networking with photographers and having great pictures.
And those early photo shoots are usually unpaid. You cover the costs as an investment in your portfolio.
He advises using those magazine features as leverage to get more exposure and introduce yourself to companies.
He quotes Jim Mentler, who's observed bodybuilders who miss out on opportunities because they're not available for photo shoots or lose their conditioning after a contest. You got to be ready when those chances come.
He emphasizes being in peak shape for photos, even if it means shooting before a competition. Your visual presentation matters.
He then lays out a game plan.
Yeah.
Honestly assess your strengths and weaknesses, define what makes you unique, market your strengths, and improve or minimize your weaknesses. Approach companies as a valuable asset, get their attention creatively, and get in front of cameras as much as possible when you're in top shape.
He sums up bodybuilding marketing with a quote from Ron Harris. Something for nothing is a myth. He emphasizes asking what you can do for companies, not the other way around. Have something unique to offer, beyond just a good physique. Maybe you're the best natural bodybuilder in your category, or you have a special training philosophy, something like that.
He concludes by saying that a bodybuilding career takes intelligence, optimism, patience, and persistence. Having a plan and a strategy greatly increases your chances of success.
And remember, Skip La Cour himself has been there. He's a successful natural bodybuilder, a writer, a speaker, and has worked with big supplement companies. He knows what he's talking about. As we wrap up this deep dive into thinking big, it's clear that these principles apply to more than just bodybuilding. They're valuable for achieving any goal.
We've covered a lot: mindset, goal setting, role modeling, persistence, gratitude, contribution.
Here's something to think about. What's one limiting belief you can challenge in your own life, whether it's related to fitness or something else? How would adopting an abundance mentality change your perspective on your goals and the success of others?
We encourage you to explore Skip La Cour's work further and think about how you can apply these concepts.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found some valuable insights and strategies.